Hello, I'm a student learning sociology, and today I'll be talking about the anti-LGBTQ laws in Russia, Hungary, and the United States. Let's first talk about Russia and their anti-LGBTQ law title for the purpose of protecting children from information advocating a denial of traditional family values. It was signed by President Vladimir Putin on June 30, 2013. On the first reading, 435 voted for, 1 voted against, and on the second reading, 137 voted for and 1 voted abstain. The summary of this law is censors information about the existence of the LGBTQ community, basically meaning that pride parades are not allowed, that drag shows are not allowed, anything that goes against what they categorize as Russian values, everything that goes against Russian values is not allowed. Now, let's go with the Hungarian anti-LGBTQ law. It was signed by President János Áder on June 23, 2021. 157 voted for, 1 voted against, and 51 were absent. The summary of this law is prohibits exposure of minors to LGBT existence and material. So, this law and the Russian one are pretty similar. Here in Wikipedia, it even says that the act is often labeled by critics as a Russian-style propaganda law in reference to the 2013 Russian anti-LGBTQ law, because they both censor LGBTQ existence and materials. They're really against it, as both countries are considered to be conservative. Now, the United States of America is more liberal. It does allow many things for those in the LGBTQ community, way more things. But as of lately, there have been many laws trying to be passed in order to censor or go against those in the community. I chose Oklahoma, and I read an article that, quote, says Oklahoma lawmakers have introduced 40 bills limiting LGBTQ Oklahoman soccer access, inclusion in schools, and options for self-expression. As you can see, all three laws are kind of similar, as they all limit self-expression, which in the United States technically couldn't be allowed because it's unconstitutional. But it does appear that as we move forward, the more we go backwards. Because even here in Wikipedia, it mentions how in Russia there have been many advances for the LGBTQ community, that people have been allowed to change their name, their sex, allowed to be identified as something else. But it has been stripped away for what I consider not a good reason, which is protecting Russian values, which I do believe that the values of a country are important, but if those values are against human rights, I don't believe they should be considered. Now, my professor wanted me to talk about to apply a major sociological perspective, and I chose functionalism because Because functionalism is a theoretical perspective that views society as a complex system where different parts work together to maintain social stability and solidarity. And I consider functionalism a perfect example of this because what this country wants are is stabilization and being allowed to control those that could possibly go against their own values, because as we know, even though America is not that conservative, the the people in office are old. Yeah, they're old, right? There's not many young people that could advocate for those that are now the biggest part of the population, which is the young generation. There's only, well, I wouldn't say only, but there are in its majority more people that advocate for the less population, which is uh, the old, the old generation. And that's what I believe in this about this topic.